Hello there, my name's Annette Beveridge and I'm an author and publisher, and I'm also deeply involved with conservation and animal welfare. And I wanted to talk a little bit today just about things that things that I find are an issue. I always write about the wrongs and how we can correct them. And in this case, it's intensive farming practices. But the link then is to embarking upon a plant-based diet. Now, as someone who hasn't eaten meat or fish for 25 years, okay, I'm coming from a place where I feel that it's quite easy to give up eating meat or fish. I certainly didn't find it a problem at all because there's so many recipes out there. And these days, of course, there's so many plant-based options just in the supermarket. So, but I'm not trying to make everybody go the veggie route at all. What I am saying is it's kinder for your health, it's kinder for the environment, it's kinder for animals, and it even works for helping climate change. So that can't be bad. So basically, let's look at the plant-based diet from a health perspective. Now, we talk a lot about the need for protein, and of course, we do get, or people generally get their protein from meat. But in a vegetarian or vegan diet, you can get protein quite easily, so you don't need to worry about going from one to the other. Now, the other thing is, people think that it's going to be very difficult to find something that resembles meat. Well, actually, there's things out there that do resemble meat. In my opinion, too much like it. But for somebody who's not worried about the ethics of eating meat, then actually having some of the burgers or sausages, the replacements that's out there, you might just really enjoy that. And certainly, I think vegetarian and vegan food, I think it's really tasty and nutritious. Even better if you're going to plan some recipes of your own, okay? So you can have fun experimenting. I would strongly suggest opting for a couple of days first and see how you go and plan out your menus. And that way you're not coming home from work, say on a Monday or Tuesday, absolutely exhausted, and then wondering what to cook. Okay, you've already got the plan for it. And I think that's the thing that a lot of people embark upon this as a lifestyle change and suddenly think, I have nothing in to eat, and then they go back to eating what they were before. So that's just one tip for you. But the other thing I want to talk about is that the whole intensive farming process, it's really not kind, it's not good. And I think, that we have to really consider the welfare of animals. It doesn't matter if it's chickens or pigs or cattle. We know that, people tend to think differently about these animals because they're not our pets, they're in the field. We know that, they're either giving, sort of contributing in the dairy process, or there's the, beef or pork or chicken. But the point is we still mustn't be cruel about it. And I've talked to quite a few people who have worked in slaughterhouses, and I've heard some horror stories, and you probably have too. And I'm not going to go into them here. However, I think the less animals that go through that process, the better. Now, equally, if we are this nation of animal lovers that we talk about, then we have to consider whether intensive farming is even a good thing. Now, I can say hand on heart, it's not, right? But I think, we tend to think that, the welfare of animals and how they're treated in America is far worse than in Britain. And maybe they are, but I can say that we don't do so good either. Now, there's a lot of animals that are kept in conditions which are just not good. I mean, it's very cramped conditions and not healthy. And what happens is, in an intensive farming process, if you can imagine, everything's about money, getting those animals through because they are a commodity rather than being the sentient beings that they actually are. These are animals that feel fear just the same as we would, okay? And they feel discomfort or pain in the same way that we would. So we still should treat things with respect. Now, instead of improving their environment, what do? We pump them full of chemicals. We try to get them to grow quickly. That can't be good, right? And we also give them antibiotics. Now, the antibiotics aren't because they're sick. The antibiotics are because We don't want them to get sick because they're in these sometimes squalid conditions where they could get ill. So what happens is after they've been slaughtered, they turn up on your plate, and then, hey, you're eating any chemicals or antibiotics that's in the meat. That can't be good for you either. Okay, so that's one really good reason to avoid, either eating meat or reducing it, so that you don't have all that. Now, we are in the middle of an antibiotic crisis in that, a lot of the times, the conditions that we have may be resistant to some of the antibiotics, and that's because they were overprescribed. And hey, if they're in your food, how can that be right? That can't help the problem. So then if you have all these animals that's in the fields, and we know with cattle, for example, that they release rather a lot of methane. So that's not good because we're in the middle of a climate emergency. So, less animals out there means less methane, which means it's kinder for the environment. The fields can be used for other types of farming, perhaps, sort of crops or whatever, which we may well need in due course. We do have to think about the climate change and how that's going to impact the foods that we have. But also less animals means less having to go through that awful, horrible process of going to the slaughterhouse. And equally, you should feel healthier too. Okay, so it's just a thought. Maybe it's a challenge. I don't know. Have a couple of days and see how you feel. Experiment a little bit with some plant-based options and you might feel so much better. I did, and I think it's worth having a go. Thanks very much for listening.